Before we dive into this chilling case, make sure you subscribe, because the truth hiding behind today's story is darker than anything you've heard this week. And trust me, you don't want to face it alone. The rain was falling sideways the night it happened, hammering against police cruisers as though the storm itself was warning them to go back. It was 2:47 a.m. on a remote forest road outside Redwood Falls, a quiet western town known for hiking trails, weekend cabins, and exactly 0 major crimes in the last decade. That peace shattered when a panicked driver called 911 after nearly colliding with an abandoned sedan sitting in the middle of the road, headlights still on, driver's door wide open, engine running. When officers arrived, they expected to find a drunk hiker stumbling through the woods or someone who'd simply broken down and gone to get help. Instead, they stepped into a scene that made the hair on their necks rise. The car belonged to 28-year-old Elena Marquez, a respected freelance wildlife photographer known for documenting dangerous locations with fearless dedication. Her camera bag was still inside the car. Her tripod was set up on the roadside, facing the dense tree line. And her phone was wedged between the driver's seat and the console, still recording. The last captured sound in the recording sent every investigator into full alert. A whisper. Close. Urgent. And spoken directly into the microphone. Elena, run. No one could explain it, not the tone, not the voice, not the way the whisper cut off suddenly like the speaker had been pulled backward. The recording had no footsteps, no crash, no scream, only that warning. But the most chilling detail? Investigators confirmed the whisper wasn't Elena's voice. Within hours, state police, search and rescue teams, drones, and K-9 units swarmed the area. The forest was one of the largest in the region, rugged, unforgiving, filled with narrow trails and sudden drops. If Elena had run blindly into the dark, she could have fallen, gotten lost, or succumbed to the storm. But the deeper investigators went, the more the forest seemed to swallow their efforts. They found only one clue, a single footprint, small, maybe Elena's, pressed into the mud near a cluster of broken branches. But beside it was something stranger, a long drag mark that looked as if someone had been pulled. Or had pulled someone else. Detective Marcus Hale, a veteran investigator with 22 years on the force, took lead. He'd worked kidnappings, homicides, and cold cases. He'd seen cruelty and chaos. But as he studied the abandoned car and played the recording again, something unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. This wasn't an accident, he told the team. Someone was here with her. Someone close enough to whisper into her phone. And whatever happened, happened fast. In the days that followed, Elena's disappearance dominated local news. The community rallied behind the family, who insisted Elena wasn't reckless. She didn't venture into dangerous areas without backup. She always texted her location. And she had a strict rule, never shoot alone at night. But there were no messages or calls from her after 11:08 p.m. And for the first time in years, she had gone out without telling anyone where she planned to shoot. Why? That question became the key to everything. Detective Hale dug into Elena's recent work and realized she had been investigating a story of her own, one she hadn't told her family or editor about. Her last downloaded file was a map of abandoned ranger stations deep within Redwood National Forest. These stations hadn't been used in over 30 years, after a series of budget cuts shut them down. Most were collapsing or overgrown. But Elena had highlighted Station 12B, a remote cabin nearly 11 miles from the main trail, rumored among locals to be a place hikers avoided after sunset. In her phone history, Hale found a search that chilled him. Is Station 12B still accessible? Reports of trespassers. Then another. Missing hikers, Redwood Falls unsolved. The detective's instinct screamed that Elena hadn't just gone out to photograph wildlife. She had been following a lead, one she hadn't trusted anyone with yet. When Hale visited Elena's apartment, her workspace told the story better than any witness could. On the wall were pinned photographs of forests, trails, and abandoned structures. But beneath them, taped to the corner of her desk, was something that made his pulse quicken. A handwritten note. If anything happens to me, check the cabin. No one knew who wrote it. No one knew why Elena kept it hidden. But the handwriting didn't match hers. Hale ordered an immediate ground search of the forest surrounding Station 12B, though the journey required skilled trackers and an ATV team. The path was narrow, rocky, and nearly washed out by the storm. By dusk the next day, they reached the clearing where the old cabin stood, leaning, rotting, blanketed in moss and silence. Hale's flashlight scanned the ground. Broken underbrush. Mud patches. Footprints overlapping each other. Signs of someone moving quickly, maybe running. Closer to the cabin door, he found something half buried in wet leaves. A torn fabric strap. Black. Padded. Camera bag material. And stitched on the torn edge was a small embroidered patch Elena always carried with her, a tiny silver mountain symbol she designed herself. The team spread out, circling the cabin, sweeping for tracks. The forest held its breath. Everything felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. The kind of silence that smothers sound rather than absorbs it. Hale reached for the door handle. It wasn't locked. But something had been placed against it, something heavy, keeping it barely open just an inch. He pressed his shoulder against the wood and pushed. Hard. The door scraped open slowly, groaning like it hadn't been moved in decades. Every light shone into the darkness inside. Then the deputy beside him whispered, voice shaking, "Detective, you need to see this." Because sitting in the middle of the cabin floor, illuminated by their flashlights, was a tripod. And on top of it, perfectly positioned and pointing at the door, was Elena's missing camera. But that wasn't what froze the team in place. What stopped them cold was the fact that the camera was still on. Still recording. With a red blinking light. And the timer showed it had been running for 14 hours. Hale swallowed hard, stepped forward, and reached for the camera. But when he pressed play, what they saw in the footage made every investigator's blood run cold. The cabin felt colder the moment the footage began to play, as if the camera itself carried the chill of whatever happened inside. The screen flickered with the grain of low light, then slowly sharpened. The first frame showed only the empty interior of the cabin, broken shelves, collapsed furniture, dust floating like ash in the beam of the camera's night vision mode. For a moment, nothing moved. Then a sound echoed from somewhere behind the camera. A shuffle. A breath. A soft click, like a boot on old wood. In the video, the camera stayed perfectly still. No one touched it. No one adjusted it. Yet the audio captured footsteps circling the tripod, deliberate and slow, as though whoever had set it up wanted Elena, or someone else, to know they weren't alone. The glowing timer showed the recording had started at 12:11 a.m., less than an hour after Elena's car was found abandoned. Detective Hale leaned closer, jaw tightening. "She came here," he whispered. "She made it to the cabin. But if that were true, why wasn't she in the video?" The next minute answered nothing. Just footsteps circling the camera, stopping occasionally, then continuing again. Hale's deputies shifted uneasily. One murmured, "Is someone messing with us?" Hale didn't respond. He couldn't. Because the longer he watched, the more it became clear, the person moving around the camera wasn't panicked. They weren't rushing. They weren't searching. Their movements were controlled. Steady. Almost ritualistic. At the 23-minute mark, the audio changed. A single knock. Not on the cabin door. But on the inside wall. 3 taps. Pause. 3 more taps. Someone was giving a signal. Hale felt something cold sink into his stomach. That wasn't the behavior of someone lost or running. It was communication. Then, at the edge of the frame, something moved. Just a sliver at first, the suggestion of a shoulder, then the faint outline of a figure pacing just outside the camera's view. The night vision caught only fragments, a coat sleeve, the corner of a boot, the faint glint of a metal buckle. But one detail stood out unmistakably. Every few steps, the figure paused, and looked at the camera. But the face remained just out of frame, as if they understood exactly where the camera's blind spot was. The recording continued like this for nearly an hour. Then, at the 70-minute mark, everything shifted. The cabin door creaked open on video. The wind howled through the gap, sending dust swirling across the floor. And then, "Elena," a voice called softly. Hale's eyes widened. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't panicked. It was a calm, low voice, male, gentle enough to sound familiar. Comfortable, even. But Elena wasn't visible on the footage. Only the voice. "Elena, come on," the voice said again. "We're almost done. You knew this wouldn't be easy." The deputies stared at the screen, speechless. Hale's heartbeat hammered in his ears. Had Elena come here with someone willingly? He rewound the footage 10 seconds, listening again. The voice was confident. Not threatening. Someone who believed Elena was cooperating. Someone who thought she understood what they were doing. Someone she trusted. The voice returned, closer now, as if the speaker stepped right in front of the camera. "I told you we're not alone out here. So stay close. Don't wander. It's not safe." Another sound entered the audio, softer, shakier. A woman's breathing. Elena. She wasn't in the frame, but she was close enough that the microphone picked up her breaths. Shallow. Nervous. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "Because this doesn't feel right. We should go back." The man responded quickly, a hint of impatience slipping into his tone. "You wanted the truth, didn't you? You said you were ready." The video shook slightly as the wind rattled the cabin, but neither person moved into view. Only their voices filled the space. "We need proof," the man said. "Real proof. You said you couldn't publish without evidence. Hale clenched his fist. Evidence of what? Before he could interpret the exchange, the recording jumped, a sudden jolt in the footage, like the camera had been bumped or someone brushed against the tripod. For 3 seconds the screen blurred. When it refocused, the cabin was empty. No footsteps. No voices. Just the open door swinging slowly, as though someone had left in a hurry. Hale fast-forwarded through the remaining 13 hours. Nothing else happened. No one returned to the cabin. Yet the camera continued recording until its battery finally died. The detectives exchanged uneasy glances. Something was wrong. Everything about the interaction felt like a staged meeting between Elena and a man she trusted, but every instinct told Hale that trust had been misplaced. He rewound again to the male voice. He had heard that voice before. He was certain of it. But from where? Hale pulled out his phone and contacted the technical lab. I'm sending you a clip. Clean the audio. Enhance the male voice. I need an ID. The lab confirmed they'd begin immediately. As the team processed the cabin, Hale's deputy, Carter, called out from the back room. Detective, you need to see this. Hale rushed over. The deputy pointed to the wall behind a collapsed shelf. On the rotting wood were faint scratches. Not random, deliberate markings carved by someone desperate. 4 straight vertical lines. Then a 5th crossing them diagonally. A tally. A count. Someone had marked 5 days. But whose days were they counting? Elena's? Someone before her? Or someone still missing? Hale snapped a photo. Bagged this section of wood. Carefully. As they continued to search, another deputy emerged from outside. Detective, we found tracks. 2 sets. A man's and Elena's. They go deeper into the forest. How recent? Hale asked. Maybe hours before the storm. They're already fading. Direction? The deputy hesitated. Toward the ravine trail. Hale's stomach dropped. The ravine was infamous: narrow cliffs, unstable ground, deadly drops. If someone wanted to disappear, or make someone disappear, that was the place. He immediately ordered the team to follow the trail. Floodlights lit the forest. A drone was launched overhead. The storm had cleared but left the ground slick, making every step dangerous. Half a mile in, the tracks merged. Then stopped abruptly near the edge of the ravine. Hale knelt, brushing away wet leaves. A single object lay half buried in the mud. A silver mountain-shaped patch, the twin of the one found earlier, torn from Elena's jacket this time, not her bag. And next to it, shoe prints. Deep, heavy. Someone had been dragging weight. Not luggage. Not equipment. A person. Carter swallowed hard. Sir, whatever happened here, she didn't walk away. Hale stared into the darkness of the ravine. The wind howled like a warning from the depths below. But then his radio crackled. Detective Hale, the lab tech said. We enhanced the voice. You need to hear this. Go ahead. The man's voice in the cabin? It matches someone in our database. Someone connected directly to Elena. Hale tensed. Who? There was a long pause. It's her ex-partner. Daniel Hayes. The man who disappeared from town 8 months ago, without a trace. Hale froze. Daniel Hayes had never been found. His case was unsolved. And now he was the last person heard with Elena. The detective looked again at the ravine, the place where 2 sets of tracks ended and only silence remained. The storm quieted. The forest waited. And Hale whispered to himself the words every investigator dreads. This case just became a hell of a lot bigger. Detective Hale stood at the edge of the ravine as dawn crept over Redwood Falls, washing the forest in pale, unforgiving light. The tracks had stopped sharply at the cliff's break, one pair shallow, uncertain, belonging to Elena, the other pair deeper, wider, belonging to a man who hadn't been seen in nearly a year. Daniel Hayes. Hale replayed the audio in his mind, Daniel's calm, familiar voice whispering Elena's name, guiding her deeper into one of the most dangerous parts of the forest. It didn't make sense. Why would someone who vanished months ago reappear only to lead Elena into the wilderness? And if he was alive, why hadn't he returned to his own life? The drone hovering above the ravine suddenly dipped lower. Detective, the operator said quietly, eyes narrowing at the monitor. We've got something. About 60 feet down on a ledge. Hale jogged to the screen. The drone's camera zoomed in on a narrow outcropping of rock. Something was there, a shape, half covered in leaves and dirt, barely visible. Fabric. Torn. Dark. A jacket. Hale's chest tightened. Get a rope team down there. Now. Within minutes, the rescue crew descended carefully, the air thick with tension. Hale watched their slow progress, each second dragging like an hour. The forest seemed to hold its breath. When the team reached the ledge, one of them leaned over,